Now, come on, you knew I couldn't resist. We had to come back at least one more time to SnowTALK, right? No need to panic. Nothing major coming our way on the snow side. But there is some snow that will take place later on for tonight. We typically do see this winter revenge attack. It's the only time I ever get a chance to play the SnowTALK theme at least one more time. And I got a feeling this is probably it. This is probably it, at least until we get to Halloween. Always seems like Halloween, there's our first chance of snow every year, right? So we'll see. I'm sure you guys are going to miss it. Now, this is the fun side of the blog, obviously talking about the snowflake potential. There's obviously the serious side that I also want to cover about what happened in the past 24 hours, even what's happened in the last 50 years. So there's a lot of recapping I want to cover, and then we'll get into the short range, and then I also want to get into the eclipse. There's some new data on that, starting to see a little more definitive signal on how the storyline will play out toward the eclipse day. So if you're still trying to figure out your plans, I'll try to answer that as well. I'll try to zip through this as fast as I can, because I don't want to waste too much of your time. You know, you guys are busy. It's 1:29 here in the afternoon. Not a normal time for me to be on, right? All right, so let's get into, before we get into the snow side of things, I want to at least go back to the recap of what a lot of the local media has been talking about in the past week or so. Has been not really the most recent tornado touchdown, but what happened 50 years ago. This is an important anniversary date, 50 years since April 3rd and 4th super outbreak of tornadoes. Still to this day, stands as the most significant, largest tornado outbreak in recorded history. And Wave Country was right in the middle of that. Those of you that grew up here, you knew the stories on this. Those of you new to the area, you may have heard about this, especially from Ohio down to the south, but no doubt into Wave Country. It was the Brandenburg tornado, also into Hanover College area, into Jefferson County, Indiana. Those really stood out in our area, as well as, of course, the one right into the middle of Louisville. There was 148 tornadoes that came through the eastern United States today. It was a warm front, and I'll show you what that kind of looked like in a second. That warm front came through. Very similar to what we had yesterday, in a sense of we had clouds and rain and a relatively cool start to the day. The sun came out, and when the sun came out, we got into the 3 or 4 o'clock window, and the supercells just blossomed everywhere. And some of this carried over the calendar date into the after midnight hour. That's why it's the 4th is listed there. But for Louisville, it was the 3rd that we're talking about. 2 EF5s, or actually 2 F5s. There was no E yet in the scale. That enhanced scale came out a few decades later. It was just the F scale at the time that was actually done post-tornado event. For the first time, they really discussed rating tornadoes on the wind speed side of things, on the damage assessment by Dr. Ted Fujita, which at that point, again, was relatively new in that idea of thinking. But 2 F5s, and that purple line, you see it tracking right across Crawford County into the Clark County line. And then we had one, of course, right there into Brandenburg that moved in right along the Ohio River. And then we had several F4s, including right into Louisville, and then also right into Madison, Indiana, Hanover College area that took place, doing a lot of damage as well. The F4 that came through Louisville was right in the middle of Cherokee Park, as you guys know. I believe I was listening to Dr. Forbes earlier today. I believe he said it was like 10,000 trees. I believe that's right. And were basically just flattened in a matter of moments there with that one tornado that came through Cherokee Park all the way in the northeast side of Jefferson County into Oldham. And you can see the wider version of this, how again, you can almost see the shape of how that warm front came through early in the day, passed by, and then you got just the warm air right there in the middle, and then you got the supercells that passed through. 148 tornadoes, more than 300 killed. What an event. So I want to at least acknowledge that. We'll have more on this coming up today on Wave News, as it's just not really ironic, because that's how Wave Country is. We always have anniversary dates of big weather events, and then the actual weather that matches that event ends up happening near that date. We do that a lot around here, and obviously this year has been no different. So let me start, and this is going to loop, and then I'll slow it down. This is the radar from yesterday, and this starts yesterday morning in the pre-dawn hours, because we had really 3 different rounds of severe weather that took place. The middle one you may not really recall. But the second one, or the third one actually, is the one that got the most attention yesterday afternoon around 5 o'clock. So that's the loop on this. Let me do this frame by frame. Yesterday morning, we had what was an MCS, a complex of storms that roll through it. Here we are at 7:53, about 8 o'clock in the morning. That's when we started to develop a few of the tornado warnings that were showing up along this line, moving right across areas just west of Louisville, triggering, of course, a very messy setup at the rush hour. But it was right at this point into northeast areas of Nelson County is where that EF1 touchdown as you got into Chaplin, Kentucky. Another touchdown into Anderson County, Jessamine County, and Bourbon County have now been added to the list of tornadoes from the morning round that we had yesterday. As far as within wave country, it was just the EF1 in Nelson County. Again, that was yesterday morning. We head toward the midday hours, and this is the one that's a little odd that I'm waiting to see what the Weather Service will decide on. But at about 1:10 yesterday afternoon, we did have a circulation that developed, and we've gotten some spotter video near Georgetown, Indiana, indicating that it looks like a potential tornado had developed in that area, but we had 0 reports of damage. So the Weather Service, I'm sure, is checking this out today to see whether or not that indeed took place and if there was any damage. It looked like from the brief video I saw, and I can't share it, unfortunately, due to copyright, but it looked like it was in a very much a wooded area. So hopefully it'll be easy to spot with the tree damage, but then again, it looked very, very small and very, very brief. So it may be a bit of a challenge. But either way, that was the one around the midday hours. And then we get into the afternoon. And this is where, again, the sun came out. Everyone talked about that, right? The sun's out. This is bad. We're warming up into the upper 70s, which is a little ahead of what was expected. All the parameters were there. The storm started back into southwest Indiana. And then we had the cells that quickly developed right into Indiana. We got into the first supercell that raised a lot of red flags that developed. It was really tracking out of Orange County, moved into northern Washington, southern areas of Jackson, and then to Scott, and then northern Jefferson County. That survey is not back yet. The velocity on that, though, on the radar, when we were tracking it, some of the speeds, at least off the ground. And it's tough because we have to use the radar that's coming out of Indianapolis and the radar out of Fort Knox. So it's kind of a challenge right at that level of territory with the earth curving in that area for the radar beam. But the radar estimate was over 100 miles per hour off the ground. So certainly on the radar perspective, and we had reports that it was on the ground by sheriff's deputies in Caruthersville, and where we're getting reports of damage back even to portions of Jackson County has moved into southern Jennings and northern areas of Jefferson County, Indiana. Again, that survey is not back yet. We were tracking that at the same time we were watching what was developing as what looked like a straight line wind scenario that was moving in out of Crawford County, moved into Harrison County, moved into Louisville, the northern side of Louisville, into Jeffersonville, New Albany. And when this took place, what was remarkable about when this took place, let me kind of back the radar up right about here. It's a little sensitive on the mouse, sorry. So about 5:30 yesterday afternoon, the circulation, let me zoom in. It's going to be a lot easier for you all. It was a straight line wind look initially. When it got into southern Indiana, very close to New Albany, we were looking at the radar beam again. And at this point, it's a little distorted because of the downtown area. But the circulation was really showing up. Then we started getting the first reports of trees were being knocked down in Floyd County. Then we got reports at the time of one semi that was flipped over on the Lee Hamilton. Then we got reports of 11 vehicles that were flipped. I don't know the official count, but based on what we got on the Trimar cameras, it was certainly several semis that were flipped on the Lee Hamilton. You could see almost the appendage there, the kind of the hook that was developing. I guess it's 5:36, staring down Louisville at the moment. The rest of the city, Louisville, is quiet. It was just right there on the northern side that we're talking about. At that point, the tornado warning came out, tracked right across the Lee Hamilton South near the East End Bridge, and then tracked into Prospect, into Oldham County. Sorry, it's a little sensitive again as this moves by there. They have found so far in the survey, and it's as of this live feed right now, EF1 damage that took place into southern Clark County in Jeffersonville, and they also found EF1 damage in the Prospect area. They have not finished Oldham County yet. For those of you who wonder about Oldham County or even the rest of the entire path in general, they've only found a couple spots that have already hit EF1 status. Now, the question is, was that one continuous tornado that moved across the northern metro into Oldham County and eventually into Newcastle, into Henry County, or did it develop, touch down, go back up, recycle again, touch back down? Therefore, it gets a different count. That is what they have got to figure out. And that is much more of a challenge because they have to really drive into a lot of different neighborhoods to figure out if it was a consistent path. I will tell you that when we were tracking this live yesterday, the circulation was strong, but it did have a cycling effect to it. So it did look like it was going back up at times. So that's, again, why it's a little confusing when you see all the confirmations come out of EF1s here. Like how many tornadoes were there? Well, we know Nelson County for sure in wave country. All right. And we know that at least one tornado has moved across Clark County all the way into Henry County. We just don't know if it was one solid one or multiple ones. We will sort that out. Weather Service is sorting it out. They got a tough job. We will pass that on as soon as we know. But that's the radar view again as it passed on by. And then really, it was fairly quiet after that. We had storms that moved across central Kentucky. We had a lot of heavy rain, some hail in Louisville that passed through after that line of storms. But otherwise, they passed on by in southern Kentucky without much more in the way of damage. Okay, at least want to cover that. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, probably more than you probably wanted to hear, but at least want to make sure you guys were aware where we stood. So when we get back into this in the newscast later, that has a little bit of context to it. Now, you're already noticing outside. I've seen your comments. You're already talking about the grapple that is taking place, the ice pellets. Sarah talking about this. Dippin' Dots. There you go. Dippin' Dots. That's a good way to word it. This is basically soft hail that's taking place. In some cases, it is actually hail in southern Kentucky, and in some areas, it is more of the grapple. Not necessarily a sleet scenario yet, because this is on the southern side of a giant low pressure that I'm about to show you. But we're in the warmer process, if you will, of what's happening in the atmosphere. So it's mainly going to be a grapple scenario or a piece ice hail that we're talking about. Anytime you see a few little yellow specks that are showing up, that's where you're going to get those ice pellets mixed in with some of the showers. Very speckled look to the radars that we're talking about. Here are the reports we're getting so far from MPEAM. You can see several of the purple dots, and I could tell when everyone's using the MPEAM app and sending them in, it's a little confusing. What do you select? Sleet? Do you select hail? Do you select grapple? You have the option of all three. All three are fine because we're going to see them all here. So thank you for those that send your reports in. But it is a grapple scenario more than likely than is sleet. This is going to continue as long as the sun is out today. As far as above the, we got a partly cloudy sky. It's a heating process. I know it's chilly outside. I mean, the wind has been strong today. We've gotten up to 41 miles per hour for a wind gust already. And so it creates a wind chill in the 30s outside. So the sun's not doing a whole lot. It's a cold day. But the sun, its process itself is allowing the air to still rise. So it's allowing for these more speckled look of downpours. You can still get lightning, by the way, out of some of this. I haven't seen the lightning strike yet within wave country. This particular view does show 2 strikes, though. Now it's down to 1. So I can't rule out. You could hear a little bit of rumble of thunder. But this is not anything severe. This is nothing severe. It's a challenge for everyone trying to get everything cleaned up, though, for around the Louisville Metro and Indiana. No doubt. But once we get into tonight, what is interesting is that we switch from a warm process to a cold process. This is a big upper low that's produced a half a foot of snow into Wisconsin. Are we going to get a half a foot of snow tonight? No, we are not. But this upper low is diving to the southeast. And boy, you can just tell by looking at the animation of it, this is a slow mover. It is not in a hurry to get out of here. That's the reason why we're going to be dealing with this for a few days, it looks like. Tonight, there will be some snow showers. Anything that were to stick with this is going to be on grassy areas. I don't see huge concern on anything on the snow side. If you're traveling towards Cincinnati and Ohio, you may get up to about a quarter of an inch on grassy areas, cars and rooftops. I'm not going to rule it out because I say that it's not going to happen and then it happens and everyone boxes me in a corner. It's possible, but it's not going to get below freezing tonight. We're not looking at anything as far as icy roads or anything like that. But it's going to have to be a night process because the sun angle is high enough now that it keeps it mainly rain during the day. But again, some snow showers tomorrow morning. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. You see a band of snow coming at us tomorrow afternoon. Oh, man, that looks impressive. But it's a daytime event, so it goes to rain by the time it gets here. But a cold, miserable rain, too. I mean, this thing is going to take until Friday night to get this low out of here. And then we get into a freeze Saturday morning. What about the eclipse? Well, here's the issue with that. We've got rain that's going to be moving in Sunday night. A wave of showers will pass through Sunday night through about 8 o'clock in the morning on eclipse day morning. Then we get into a thinning of clouds near the actual eclipse, near 11 o'clock or 12. There's a thinning or even a clearing that happens. And then by the 4 o'clock hour, or just after, we cloud right back up again with mostly cloudy skies, and then rain moving back in Monday night. Right now, the window we've got to get a thinning of clouds or even a clearing is roughly about 6 hours to work with at the moment for Monday. And yes, so far, that 6-hour gap is fitting in during the time of totality at 3:07 p.m. for Indiana. Boy, it's going to be close, guys. I don't like that kind of a window of 6 hours, and it's Wednesday. It could easily shift around. So I don't want to get too excited yet, but I'll let you guys know that at least there's a glimmer of hope. Right now, this could play out just fine, and it's tough on planning because it only takes one cloud, right, to move right over your head. And it's still going to get dark during a solar eclipse, right? You guys know that it's going to get in totality. You're still going to get dark. The difference is obviously you're missing the celestial event of seeing the sun being blocked by the moon. That is an incredible sight to witness, and it's the only time in totality that you can actually take your eclipse glasses off and look at it. You can't at any other time in the environment of the sun being out, can you ever look at it other than a solar eclipse without doing any damage to your eye? So that in itself is pretty exciting to have that moment to be able to see that in person. Again, South Scottsburg North is where that total eclipse area will be. All right. So there you go. Would you say, Angela, seriously, Brian, this blast of winter? Sorry about that, Angela. I hope that explains some of the setup here for the tornado event in the recent 24 hours here. Hope that makes sense on the snowflakes. I hope this makes sense on the eclipse. This is a brief block today because we have to jump on with a news update here in less than 5 minutes. So I got to run. So I'm sorry I don't have a lot of time to spend with you guys, but I'll be back tomorrow. I'll have a chance to talk with y'all a little more, and we'll see how this looks for the eclipse setup again as we head into the upcoming Monday time period. Counting down to April the 8th, guys. All right. I'm glad everyone's okay. Take care of each other. And stay tuned. We'll have more on the tornado coverage, of course, starting today on Wave News at 3 o'clock. See you soon.